I really appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in and take the time to educate yourself and to transform your paradigm about relationships, love, and relating to others in an intimate way, because this is what's going to happen over the course of the next 2 to 3 hours. I'm going to share with you so much insight. It's going to be coming in and out from everywhere. So be prepared. Again, this webinar is going to be recorded. I'm going to post it in my on my YouTube channel. I'll share the information with you later. So you don't have to take notes. Just be present right now and see what occurs for you. Be present. First time for information, second time for transformation, third time to actually get it on the level of being, right? Because there's all these levels that we transform on. And the first time is just, things will click. You'll have an insight. You'll catch yourself. Something will shift mentally. But then we have to get it deeper on the emotional level, and then again to take action on that insight. So my name is 𝗞𝗲𝘆, and I am a holistic transformation, self-mastery, and extreme performance expert. Venture Relentless is my agency, which I created about a year ago to empower, inspire, and educate individuals who pursue excellence in their life to 10x their quality of life by 10xing the common denominator, themselves. And again, as I already mentioned, my intention with this webinar is to empower you, inspire you, and educate you to realize your innate divine nature, your gifts, talents, and to share them with the world, because that's what we hear about. And we're going to start this conversation as in the most powerful way that we could, by asking ourselves, why do you want to learn how to meet and attract your soulmate? Why is this important to you? This is fundamental. Nietzsche said in one of the quotes I love from him is that he who has a why to live can bear anyhow. So unless we have a strong why for something, the very moment some resistance is present, we gotta give up and kind of throw the towel and look the other way and fuck off. Well, if that's the case, there's not gonna be much value that this conversation is gonna create for you. So I want you to take a moment now, and also feel free to share it in the box. This is extremely important, right? So you can inspire others. What is your why? Do you have a why? What made you tune in today for this webcast? Who's the most vulnerable person in the room who loves to share? I already told you my why. Okay, yeah, wonderful. Absolutely, absolutely. Having this clarity this is something that you actually want. Congratulations, 𝗞𝗲𝘆, for being the first to be vulnerable and share. Who's going to share with us next? I'm sure you all have a why. What is your why? You can also unmute yourself and say it out loud. That's fine as well. Okay, yeah, absolutely, Joel. Absolutely, absolutely. We'll definitely address this point as we go into the conversation. Anyone else with a powerful why? Okay, well, we have two of you sharing. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Being vulnerable is part of this journey. And this is something that we're going to actually I see. Okay, okay. All right, I like seeing this, that you guys are opening up now. No worries, we're not gonna share this with the world. It all remains between us. And again, vulnerability is part of it. Being authentic and being vulnerable. And this is again something that we're gonna get deeper into. But the first actually point I'm gonna make today, and this is gonna be the biggest paradigm shift for all of you, is the most important thing is always the relationship we have with ourselves. Because if we don't have a healthy relationship with our own self, the person that we spend 24/7, 365 days in the year for all of our life up to this point, and for the rest of our life, hopefully long, vital, and filled of joy, how can you expect to have a healthy relationship with anyone else? It's simply impossible. Because it's already, any relationship you go into is going to be dysfunctional because you don't have a functional relationship with yourself. If you cannot relate with yourself properly, how can you do it with others? It's just impossible. It's as simple as that. So this is the first thing we're actually going to talk about, because literally there is no such thing as soulmate outside of us. We are our own soulmate because we are with each other or with ourselves all the fucking time, and this is never gonna change. So, you know, you can be through a lot of different relationships and cross paths with various different people in our lives, but we are our own soulmates. And unless we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we cannot really have a healthy relationship with others, because we'll be always coming from a needy place, from a dysfunctional place, looking for validations, for significance, for having always needing something from somewhere else that we actually can't provide for ourselves. That's the key. We can provide these things for ourselves. So then when we go into a relationship with someone else, we're not coming into the relationship seeking something that it's not already there. We coming from the place of giving. We give from our overflow. We are just there to enjoy it because it's more fun to play together rather than doing it alone. And the first thing is, how do we know, or how do we develop amazing relationship with ourselves? Well, the first place to start is self-acceptance. Right? I would imagine all of us have perceived imperfections, things you wish were different about you, about your looks, about your life, about whatever the fuck it is. Doesn't matter. That's not important. What is important is to accept where you are and who you are, because nothing's going to change. The only thing you can change is how you are, or your way of being. The rest is just what it is. And coming from a place of acceptance of where you at is the place to start, because let's be realistic. Physically wise, who our parents were, our childhood, and all these periods in our life that we had to go through, the trauma, the lessons, the friends we have, the programming, and all these things, there's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. And again, as I mentioned already earlier, complaining or resisting our current circumstances is the glue that keeps us stuck to it. Rather, the most effective thing is to choose how you want to be. Who do you want to become? Rather than trying to resist what is. It is what it is. Every time you resist, you're wasting your energy away. It's kind of like if an elephant decided to sit on you. What you can do? You can push, but what's going to happen? Nothing, unless somebody does something to move the elephant. There's not much you're going to be doing. You're just going to be wasting your time. So the key here is to first focus in, because the human experience begins and ends on the inside. Nothing outside of us is making us feel things. We just have the illusion of this affecting us, but it's all internal. So first we get to the level of self-acceptance by just being okay at where we are. This is a very wonderful place to start, because as you probably know, every time you want to go somewhere using Google Maps or any point of navigation, even a plain old analog map, in order to get there, you first need to know where you're at. And Accepting where you're at is how we start. Then the next step is to develop self-love. So again, if we don't love each other, how can you expect somebody to really see you for who you are and love you for who you are? It's impossible. You'll always be coming from this place of insecurity, looking for outside validation of somebody else. Oh, what are these people thinking of me? What is this person thinking of me? Always coming from this insecure place. And when you go into a romantic or love relationship with someone, they will feel this. Maybe they won't know it consciously, but they will definitely feel it, because your energy will be from this insecure place, always kind of trying hard to get more validation, more love, all these things that you lack within, right? Because if you come into a relationship with just love to spread across the globe and envelop the whole globe with love, then whatever your partner does, you can have the compassion even when they're fucking assholes, right? Because those moments happen. We're all been in relationships, and this is part of the process when we creating a relationship. There's always going to be some friction, right? Until all the parts fit in together. This even happens in combustion engines, right? That's why if you had a brand new car or a motorcycle or anything with engine, the first whatever 500 miles, you drive it much easier, and then you get it for a service, because all the parts are starting to work with each other, creating their own grooves and spaces. They're little metal pieces that become displaced and so on, and all this needs to be cleaned up. So this is always part of the process. So accepting ourselves and then loving ourselves. Let me admit the other person here. So what do? I'll give you a very powerful tool. I shared with this last time on the last webinar I did, but I'll reconfirm this because this is a very powerful tool. Human behavior, first I want to say that, is all habitual. Everything you do, everything you feel, everything you think, every single thing in your life is habitual, regardless if you realize this or not. The moment you start to realize this and become conscious of your habitual patterns in every aspect of yourself and life, you'll have the choice to change those patterns. Why do I am saying this? Because this tool is called creating a awesomeness inventory about yourself. You take a list, you start in your journal, whatever you know, even if it's just on the notes on your computer. However, I do recommend using pen and paper, because the way it affects the system is very different than typing it on something that just exists somewhere, right? This whole tactile feeling creates a whole different reality. So with this self-awesomeness list, I want you to start adding every single day one unique thing about yourself that you love and you're grateful for. Every single day, one unique thing. And I want you to do this for a whole year, 365 days. This is going to take you, honestly, maybe 5 minutes of your day. But by the end of the year, you will love yourself so much and know why you're so fucking awesome that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you'll be falling in love even more with yourself. So that's why this is so important. So I want you to start doing this, and I can guarantee you it works, right? Because then you will create the habit, instead of when you look in the mirror to see what's wrong with you, you're going to start to see the things that are right and amazing about you, because there's only one me, only one you, and only one of every one of us. So we're all fucking amazing. We're all unique manifestation of ourselves. There is nothing really to compare ourselves to. Now, if you have an identical twin, maybe you can compare what their character is, but then your character is something you can change, right? Just like you can change your habits, you can change your character. These things are mendable, right? Where with the physicality, there's not much we can do. There's very little room to play. So I want you to start keeping that self-awesomeness list. So I want you to type in the chat bar who's committing to this. Because if you don't commit to it, what's the fucking point? It's well worth the investment. Trust me on this one. So who's first to commit? I want you to guide to commit to it, or at least one person. Wonderful. I love to hear that. Yes, it has to be different. It has to be, because then it's just a repetitive nonsense. It has to be different. It has to be unique. You have to find one thing about yourself every single day that's different from before that you can list. And I want you to be grateful for it, because it's not just the process of listing it, but also being grateful for it, that it's your gift or you've been gifted with this. I love the enthusiasm. That's important, right? Because we need to do this in order to create this amazing wiring within ourselves, again, to create the habit of noticing the amazing things about ourselves rather than criticizing and listening to the bad voice, right? Because that voice doesn't get quieter, it gets louder, right? Which dog do you feed? Exactly. I love this. Yes, guys, definitely do it. And you'll see how things starts to transform in your consciousness, right? The key is to really do it for a whole year, because at that point, this habit would be ingrained within your being. So you no longer will see what sucks about you. And it's not to come from the perspective of ego, of I'm perfect, now I don't have to do anything about myself, but it comes from a place I love myself so much, and I know there's so much growth I can do that I want to go and do everything necessary to become an even better version of myself, because I'm my self-worth, my knowing how much I love myself, I cannot afford not to do it. This is why it's so important not to develop this unhealthy ego where you're superior and everybody else is shit and you're just perfect, right? Let's change the world, but I want to stay the same way. That's pretty much what's causing all the nonsense out there in the world, on social media and you name it. Everyone else wants everyone else to change, but not them, right? Let's change the world, but I want to stay the same. Well, good fucking luck with that. You're going to have a lot of resistance and nonsense in your life. One of the most significant characteristics we as human beings can develop is acceptance, not tolerance. People talk about tolerance. Tolerance means that there is something that you dislike and you kind of like, you settle down to be okay. You'll be indifferent about it. No, accept the differences, because this is what makes us unique. This is what makes this experience so exciting, because if everyone was the same, we'll be like fucking mindless robots in one of these dystopic movies where everybody is the same, they dress the same, they talk the same, they do the same. How wonderful would that be? So this is why it's so important to have this level of acceptance, of accepting the differences in other people, because there's even deeper that we can go into, but we're not going to have the time about this today. Because here's the thing, intimacy, in order for us to be able to have a level of intimacy, which is what is required for a healthy relationship to be built upon, we need to have intimacy. And intimacy is intimacy. Allowing the other person, your partner, your loved one, your soulmate, to see who you truly are, rather than having to put a mask every single time you're in front of them to pretend that you're something else, someone else. And you can only be coming authentically from this place if you have accepted and loved yourself as you are. And then your partner will feel that, because they know that you're congruent. Your actions, your thoughts, your words, every single thing you do will be congruent, because will come from a place of alignment between your mind and your heart. And especially women can feel this, because they are very sensitive. For all you men out right now listening, women feel things where we men most of the time like to rationalize and logically think and so on. So it's always logic prior to feeling. With women, it's always feeling prior to logic. So it's very important to have this level of congruence, internal congruence with ourselves. So then, for example, I'll give you a great example. Why do you think that someone feels lonely? Can you, whatever reason you think it's the best reason, type it in the chat box. I wonder, why do you think you're lonely, or why people feel lonely. Any clues? Come on, there might be a prize for the first one who gets it. Exactly. You guys are right on the money. You don't like yourself. You don't like your own company. That's why you feel lonely. Because if you like yourself, you're never lonely. You're in the best fucking company in the world. You don't need anyone else. Why would you feel lonely if you like yourself? It only comes from a place when you don't like yourself, when you don't love yourself. That's the only reason that someone feels lonely. And here's the thing. I want you to realize this. This is extremely important. This is a big insight. So think about it. When you combine two lonely people, they don't become all of a sudden engaged with each other. You just now have two lonely people. Nothing changes. They're still lonely. It's just a group of lonely people. So finding someone, if you haven't found this amazing relationship with yourself, is not going to change anything. You're still going to feel lonely because you're not going to be able to connect with this person on the authentic level of intimacy that is required. You're always going to be lonely because you always have a face you put on in front of this person, and maybe you have a face you put on for your parents, a face for this person, a face for this person, a face that you wear in your job, and so on, right? And maybe at some point you just get so confused what face and what mask you wear that you kind of get lost. And people wonder what the fuck's going on with this person. Are they losing their mind? Excuse my profanity, but I use this for dramatic effect, and I love it because it's part of language. Exactly. And now somebody already wrote this down in the chat box, but I want you to understand that you're already complete and enough as you are. It's not like there is no work left to do, because you're a gem that needs polishing. But you already have within you the seeds for greatness. All you need to do is to water them, to give them the love and energy they need so they can come through. And the only way they can actually come through is if you accept yourself as you are, with all of your perceived imperfections. The very moment you do this, you will also start to realize what your gifts, what are your innate talents that you are brought into this game of life to share, to develop, to share, and give to the world, because they're not yours. They are given to you to nurture and then share, like a farmer does. I don't know many farmers that eat all of their produce. They usually give it away. So it's the same principle. Because again, if you have an incomplete person going into a relationship with another incomplete person, again, these are mental, psychological issues. They have nothing to do that something's wrong with you. Really, it's all in your mind, how you hold the concept of yourself in your head. Two messed up people don't complete each other. There is this nonsense out there in the romantic movies and all these things. You have these two dysfunctional people that fall in love, and now it's amazing. Like life is a party, right? It's such a romance. Bullshit. However, when you have two complete people together, you have 1 + 1 making 11. So you have a superhero team rather than just some dysfunctional relationship. And obviously, since we all have free choice, you have the free choice. Would you have to have a superhuman relationship, or you want to be in a dysfunctional relationship? It's all up to you. It's not my decision to make, but you probably know what my decision would be in this case. So again, two halves do not complete each other. The math does not add. I do agree. It's, again, As Tomo was just writing in the comment box, I was just reading what he wrote, is that she wants to live 12 categories based on the life book. I don't know if you guys want to type it in the box how many of you have done live book or know about live book, because I've shared the webinar with a lot of platforms, so I don't know who's coming from where. But if you guys are familiar, live book is a live envisioning system that allows you to create a very precise and clear vision for what you want your life to look like. What's the life you want to manifest in 12 categories, one of which is romance and love, or having an amazing partner and intimacy and all these wonderful things that come with having a great partnership like that, because that's what it truly is. It's a partnership. Okay, yeah, some of you know. Okay, some of you have done it. Yes, Marissa Peer's program is definitely great for doing this, but here's the thing. You can listen to a lot of hypnotic recordings. Your mind only listens to your voice because it's you talking to yourself. It's called auto-suggestion for one particular reason. Auto means you doing it yourself. So I do recommend you doing it yourself by creating this list every single day and implanting this habit within yourself. Now, moving on to the next point. The question becomes, who do you have to become in order to attract your ideal soulmate? Sit down and think about this. You don't have to come up with the answer right now. Write down just this question and think about it. Who do you have to become? Like, what did you learn from your previous relationships? Reflect and analyze what didn't work there. What could you have done better? Or how could you change as a person? Because we're all here to grow and increase our level of consciousness, which simply means transmuting fear into love in ever more increasing circumstances. So, what are the things that you can do to improve yourself as a human being, not just for your partner, but just as a human being playing in this game of life? Because this is going to transfer in all areas of your life, in your professional work, with your friends, just with random strangers on the street. What are the things that you can change about yourself? I'm sure there's plenty of things, because I'll tell you one thing. Just remember this one thing. If you don't remember anything else, just remember this one thing from this whole conversation. If you are perfect, if you had nothing to learn and grow, you would be a saint and you won't be here. You would have enlightened, ascended, and have disciples, which is obviously not the case. So realize that you have a lot of learning and growing to do, and there's always ways to improve and become an even greater version of yourself. So this is what I want to encourage you to think about. What are some ways that you know, right? Some of these messed up corners on your prism, on the gem that you're becoming, that needs a little bit more polishing, and focus on them, one thing at a time. I love that. I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Rosanna also mentioned empathy. Empathy is fundamental. It really is. If you want to relate with human beings, doesn't matter in romance, friendship, again, random people on the street, at work, you have to have the capacity to be empathic, not to sympathize, but to be empathic. So you know from what emotional space or energy they're coming into, what they're yourself in their shoes. So rather than judging them, you have compassion for them. You cannot be compassionate about someone or anything really if you don't have empathy. It's a fundamental ability to develop within yourself. And this was going to only happen if you have, again, a healthy relationship with your own self. This is where everything starts. It's the base that we build upon. Without a solid foundation, no structure can sustain any little disruptions that come along, because again, life is going to throw all the challenges, all the circumstances for you to have to grow and learn and show how you have grown through this experience. Now, the next point we're going to top upon is a fundamental importance, because this is where the paradigm shifts happen. And those are the popular cultural archetypes about what love should be, what romance is, and all these ideas that people have been implanting in our heads for ever since our birth about what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, right? Like, what is the one-size-fits-all model that we all should follow? I want you to know that all of it is fucking bullshit. Because just so if any of you are aware of this fact, marriage, for example, was never anything until these romantic books start to came up. Marriage was only for noble people back in the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, because they were marrying not for love. Romantic love had nothing to do with marriage. It was just about combining wealth and power. That was the only purpose of marriage. It had nothing to do with love, romance, soulmates, or any of that shit. Most of the time, the two partners never even had met before. So they didn't even know each other. And it was one of the most amazing experiences. You can imagine that, all of a sudden, your parents just be like, hey, go on the other end of the world or the other end of the country. You're going to be marrying this man and you're going to be in love. Wow. Yeah, right? This is a very interesting surprise. Or you'll be marrying this woman, regardless, doesn't matter. But those archetypes, all these ideas that we've been implanted with are all fucking bullshit. So you have the freedom to create the relationship that most works for you, regardless of what the circumstances is. So I want you to really start seeing things from this lens. Why are these fucking ideas there? Like, is there because it's benefiting me? I mean, for example, how many of you, I know Kid is from the US, and maybe there are a few more of you who are from the US, but in the US, for example, every second marriage ends in divorce. And most people have been divorced multiple times in their life, not just once. Now, this is just to give you a very basic idea. I'm not a data analyst or scientist, but success leaves clues. Same holds true for failure. Failure leaves clues. And if most of the marriages end up in divorce, then there's something off with this fucking idea, isn't it? So I do want to encourage you to challenge all these ideas you hold in your consciousness of what a romantic relationship should be like based on what you've been conditioned and programmed to buy into without even asking. Because that's the case. We've been conditioned and programmed to hold in our consciousness some ideas that are not ours, and they obviously are not working for anyone else. So what the fuck would they work for you? I'm not saying that you cannot have a great relationship with someone, but a lot of these ideas are very flawed. And when you follow, you connect the dots going backwards, as Steve Jobs used to say, because you cannot connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them backwards. You start to see where the problem is coming from. Now, as we transition into the conversation, let's find out who our soulmate is. In order to attract a soulmate, we first need to know who this person is. What are your non-negotiable must-haves of your soulmate? Meaning their character, traits, and qualities as a person. Who would like to type in? Whoever has clarity on this, please right away go type it in the box, and I'll I'll share with you later some of mine because I'm very clear of what I'm looking for. I recently become single. I was in a 2.5 years long, amazing open relationship. For those of you who understand what I mean, is like we weren't exclusive partners. We've seen each other, have an amazing time, and we saw each other for 2.5 years, and we parted on amazing ways. We're still friends. We catch up, care for each other, and so on. So that's what I was telling or sharing with you when it comes down to these archetypes or these ideas of what a relationship is or what marriage should be, and all these limiting ideas, or for all of you from mind value, rules, bullshit fucking rules, because that's what they are. All right, I see Joel has a lot more clear idea. I think you guys have a lot more work to do on this. Like, I seriously mean that. I'll just list few that come like right away from the top of my mind. These are non-negotiable for me. I'm looking for a woman that is feminine, sensual, elegant, and gentle. These are the first primary four. If she doesn't have these traits and qualities, we can be great friends, but we cannot be intimate whatsoever. It's not going to happen. These are deal breakers for me, and I can quickly not only, here's the thing, it's not only important to know what these things are, right, these traits and qualities, but also how to spot them in this person, because why would you go through a 1 year dating period trying to figure out if this person matched those criteria, right? Wouldn't that be a waste of time for you to find out that this person doesn't have none of those or has like a ton of these deal breakers for you? How much more effective would be for you to be able to spot this after one date or even a simple conversation and know that, yeah, this is not the person for me. We can be great friends. We can be all these things, but this is it, right? So that's where we're going to keep it. So get very clear on this. Define who this soulmate or perfect partner for you is, and raise your standards. Because if you don't, nothing's going to change. This is the most fundamental thing. We need to raise our standards, because if people had higher standards, personal growth wouldn't be something that me, you, and everyone who's part of Mind Value or is coming to webinars like this one have to do outside or go proactively and seek. You will be part of the educational system, part of daily life. People will be just like you, go and brush your teeth and do all these things. You'll be like, hey, what did you do to become a better person today? It won't be something that, oh, there's this niche out there, personal development, and these weird people that are all like kumbaya, kind of all this nonsense that all these people that are lazy and don't want to do anything about themselves are always sharing, or the perspective they have, right? Because this gives them this positionality that they're perfect, and why would I touch myself? The world should change. I am perfect. Good luck with that. Life will prove you wrong. I have nothing against it. So this is a very important thing, to get very clear on what these traits are, and then learn how to spot them in a person immediately or very quickly, so you can filter out very, very quickly who this person is and who this person isn't. This comes very handy. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Why do you want to be in a relationship? What's the reason why? What is your why? Why do you want to be in a relationship? What would a relationship give you or provide you with that you don't have right now in your life, or you feel that you will be able to gain by being in a relationship? This is a very important question to ask yourself and have clarity on. What's the reason for you to be or want to be in a relationship? Okay, I see sharing. Sharing as in sharing on Facebook that you're in a relationship, or what do you mean by sharing? Can you expand on that? Okay. I see. Well, that's a great reason to want to be in a relationship, to share. But here's the thing: you can go and share, let's say, food with homeless people on the street. I just fed two homeless people yesterday. I bought them a meal. I saw them going through the trash, and I went and buy them a meal and share it with them. We were not in a relationship. I never met them in my life. So you don't need to be in a relationship to share. You can share every beautiful moment with every person you meet. You don't have to be in a relationship. So I need you to think about it deeper. This is not a good reason enough. Because the moment, I'll give you why this is not good enough. Because the moment your partner doesn't want to share this with you, then what happens? You have nothing in common anymore. This is why it has to be much deeper than this, right? This is not getting into a relationship. It's not like going and buying a pair of jeans that you don't like and you can return whenever you want or throw away, right? It's going to affect both of you emotionally. So it's something to really sit down and think about. How are ways that you can find this already in your life? Because most of the things, all these needs, all these reasons, you can find very simple ways to fulfill them without even having to be in a relationship. That's the truth. You've convinced yourself that you have to look somewhere else. No, you can find it within. You just have to be a little bit more resourceful. So I do recommend that you guys sit down and really, really think about this. Okay? Well, traveling, Tomo, is not a good enough reason, because you can meet someone on Tinder and go travel for a month and have an amazing time and never see him again. Or find buddies as you go and have a short romantic experiences with people as you go. This is not good enough reason. It has to be a lot more unique, or in a way not unique, but something that you really cannot find outside of a long-term relationship, because that's what we're talking about. All these things you can find in a one-night stand with someone, right? Like, just again, opening up the box of what a relationship could look like, and where can we find the things that would give us or fulfill those needs for us without having to be in a marriage or a committed relationship and so on. There's so much simpler ways to do it. Why would we complicate things? Again, we are talking about what is effective and what is ineffective. To have a traveling partner and get in marriage or a long-term relationship is not a good enough reason. You can take your friend with you. Again, you don't have to come up with this right now. I want you to really sit down and, again, especially with those two questions. Why do you really want to be in a relationship? What is this relationship going to be able to give you that you cannot find in any other context outside of long-term committed relationship? Because that's what it is. That's what you're getting yourself into. So you have to know what it is. For example, if you want to have kids, then this is probably a necessary thing, right? It changes everything, because nobody says this, but this is something I want to have with my next partner, to have kids. There's not many people or many women I meet all the time that, let's say, we just met and it's like, oh, let's have babies and maybe we won't see each other tomorrow, right? different things that change the context altogether. So that's why I want you to sit down and think about this. And then once you know why you want to be in this relationship, then sit down and figure out what are the character traits and qualities of your ideal partner. Because once you know what you want out of this, or why do you want to be in this relationship, then you can find or determine what type of person would be able to provide you with these things. This is very important, right? If you want to buy a boat, do you go to a car dealership? Probably you can if they have one with the trailer that somebody left. But other than that, why would you go there? That's why this is important, so you can save time, effort, and emotional nonsense by going through relationships that you shouldn't be. You'll learn things through them, but it's going to be a waste of time. Let's put it this way. And there's better things you can do with your time. So get very clear on this thing. A lot of you coming into the conversation wanted clarity. Well, you're going to find clarity by asking yourself those type of questions. You're not going to find clarity somewhere on the wall. It's all here. All you have to do is ask yourself and really sit and let it steep or to bubble up until you find something that is really there and it makes you emotional and you like it, you can feel it. It's visceral. It's not just something that you think about, because all these reasons you guys listed, to be absolutely honest with you, they're just rationalization of your ego. They're not what your soul is asking for. So I would definitely recommend that you start putting some time and effort into thinking about this. Not daily like going to the gym, but give it some thought. Create some time and sit down, because this is very important. Very important if you want to have an amazing relationship with an amazing person. Now, here is the thing. This is probably going to be the hardest part for not just all of you, but me as well, and every human being out there. Once you find this partner, and let's say you're already in a relationship, the one thing you want to train yourself to do from the very beginning is being willing to let go of this person. If you start to see that you're drifting apart or whatever is going on, them being together with you is not serving their best interest. So training yourself from the very beginning to let go of those things that you love the most is a very fundamental skill to develop. Because from this place, you can really love. Because you cannot love this which or that you need. If you need something in your life, you cannot really love it because you're dependent on it. You're coming from a needy place. The energy is different. You cannot really love it. So this is a very important muscle to train and start getting used to. I know this is a very challenging task, right? But here's the thing. Relationships are nothing more than vehicles for personal growth. Doesn't matter if they're romantic relationships, friendships, professional relationships, they just rub us from different angles and facilitate different transformation and growth within us. And romantic relationships, due to their emotional impact on us, right, are the ones that have the most significant effect on our growth. So by training this muscle to be willing to let go of this person, and not because things are not working out, but you love them so much that you know it's better for them to go separate ways than continue to be in this dysfunctional situation. This will give you and will make you irreplaceable for your partner, because they will know that they're not, you don't have them in your life because you need them for something. You have them in your life just because you enjoy who they are, how they are, and that's it. This is a very important thing to start wrapping your head around, right? We're all here to learn and grow, And this is one of these significant steps of growth that we all need to take in this life journey. Yeah, I'm reading what you guys typed in. Okay, you're getting some clarity. Again, this is the purpose of the webinar today is not for you to get absolutely clear on these answers. The part of the purpose of the webinar today is to give you the questions that you can keep asking yourself until you get a level of clarity that you know this is it. And then not only this, but I want you to go and test it out. Find some person who has these qualities and actually see if this is what you want. Because if you never had this, how would you know if it's right for you or not? Right? Unless you try a pair of shoes, you don't know if they're going to fit your feet. So it's the very same thing. And if you have found your soulmate, you wouldn't be looking for them, would you? So it's something to validate your assumption, right? Because this is what you're writing down is just an assumption. You don't want to be making assumptions. You want to be validating those assumptions quickly. Now, let's talk about the next important step. Again, we were already discussing the point of breaking the bullshit rules and transforming all of these limiting ideas of what a relationship should be like. So the other question I want you to ask yourself and start tinkering about is, what does an ideal relationship looks like for you? Not your mom, not your dad, not your friends, not your whoever the fuck is trying to give you ideas of what it should be for you. And again, this is not something to answer right now, but I want you to get this level of clarity. What does this ideal relationship looks like for you? Because then you can come from this place when you look for a partner and share with them, so to see if this is something they're interested in, because maybe they're ideal, but this type of arrangement doesn't work for them, right? Okay, yeah, I like what Tomo just wrote. To be a committed team and create a wonderful life together. This is something I'm looking for too. Someone who wants to play with me this game of life to create an amazing life together and play full out. So there's level of clarity in all these different levels that you need to have. First, why do you want to be in a relationship? What is that thing or a few things that you need from this relationship that you cannot find in any other way? So you actually have to be in a long-term committed relationship. Then, what are the characters and traits of this person who will be able to offer you or fulfill your needs? And then define what this amazing relationship would look like. Again, because you want to be clear with this up front. Once you start to see, let's say you meet the person, and I would say from first date, go on first 5 minutes, or right, this is what I'm looking for, and if you're interested, in or out, right? But you want to be starting to have this very clear idea, and when you feel the time is right, you can communicate this so you can see if there is reverberation, if they're feeling this idea or not, if this, outside of their consciousness right now, so you can move on. Because maybe the timing is not right. Maybe later on it could be right. So this is something to also start getting clarity on. And again, the clarity will come from your own head. You're not going to find it on the wall. Don't ask your mom. Don't ask your friends. Ask your soul. It knows best. The heart knows. The mind thinks it knows. Do not try to, especially on these particular subjects, do not use your rationale or logic, Because it's gonna, here's the thing I want you to realize. The mind is a great servant, but a very poor leader. It's actually a sloppy leader. However, your heart knows, or your soul knows. So go deep on this and really think about it. Don't rush things through. Because if it's logical, most likely it's just your ego talking. And you're quickly gonna find out once you find yourself into that situation, just like if you were to run to catch the sunset to the horizon, you're gonna realize that by the time you reach what you thought was the horizon, the horizon has moved the same distance further. So how long you gonna be trying to catch the horizon? The next thing we need to be very, very cautious of, and I do mean cautious of, right? This is like red cautious stop signs, right? Before anything we have to do with new relationships and bringing new people on an intimate layer or level in our life is to reflect on our previous relationship patterns. Now, this is fundamental because each and every single person has relationship patterns. What were, again, as I was mentioning earlier, what are things you can do or change about how you are in relationships that would improve your compatibility and possibility of having a long, healthy relationship with someone. So I want you to start becoming very cautious and conscious and aware of your previous relationship patterns. This is fundamental because if you're running some dysfunctional patterns, which have manifest in two ways. For women is, if they had childhood trauma and didn't get enough love or what they assume to be love and affection from their dad, they'll be most likely all of their life chasing after men who have the same characteristics and treat them in the same shitty way as their dad did to earn the love and the affection to kind of like make up and show how good they are. With men is the same, but it's with women that have the qualities of their own mothers. And again, if you didn't have the affection that you wanted, the love that you wanted, the recognition and just feeling seen by that person, you'll be chasing after women that have the same dysfunctional patterns that your mom did and trying to gain validation and love from that person. So this is why it's so fundamentally important to figure out what are your previous relationship patterns. If you don't have clarity on this, do not fucking get yourself into a new relationship because most likely you're going to end up in the same place you were before. So this is something to really think about and see what your pattern is. What people do tend to fall for, what ends up being the truth at the end, and so on. So really focus on this, do some deep reflection, take some time to reflect because, again, this is just going to hurt you more every time you go into the same nonsense pattern because it is a pattern. Again, every human behavior is habitual. What habit have you developed? Now, I'm not saying you have one, but make sure that you don't, because if you do, you'll be just putting yourself in a lot more trauma that you need to be putting yourself into to learn the same lesson that you learned last time. So I do want you to really, really seriously think about this and find out what your patterns are. This is the next part that we're going to talk about. That once you're in a relationship, I want you to realize that the dynamic of this relationship, how it's going to be, and what is, and how it's evolving and transforming and so on, is mutually created. And from the very start, it begins. So whatever level you set the relationship starting from the first date or whenever you create this intimacy with this person, and that's where it's going to start from, and this is going to be an expectation of your partner for you to be coming at the same level. So for example, if you're running a pattern that you want to, if you're a man, because this is what most guys do, try to impress women with taking them to fancy dinners and buying them fancy things just to show how amazing they are, well, I have a news for you. This will have to be the base level. You'll have to go up from there every single time. You're not going to be able to go lower, because if that's the fish you got, well, that fish is not going to stick with you if you're not providing the same thing, just kind of like as a given. So you have to be mindful of this. And even if you don't make a choice, being a partner in this relationship, by not making a choice, you have already made a choice. So this doesn't give you an excuse to say, but I didn't this and this. No, by not making a choice, you already made a choice. So you have to realize this. Relationship dynamics are mutually created. And whatever permit or how you allow someone to treat you from the get-go, this is how they're going to treat you until the end. And things are going to get even worse. So again, if you have this pattern, why I'm saying this, if you have this pattern of unhealthy relationships, always ending up with some assholes, right? Don't expect for things to get better. They're only going to get worse. Absolutely, yeah. Keep on asking the questions. You need to have clarity, and you're only going to find it within. And again, do not allow your mind, your navigation system to tell you what is right, because the mind, again, is a great tool, but it serves as a navigation, meaning that once you know where you want to go, you input the coordinates and it can take you there. But you don't ask your navigation system in your car, oh, navigation, where should I go today? Or who should be my ideal partner? They cannot answer those questions for you. It's not meant to do that. So I want you to realize this and use your mind for its specific purpose, to get you from point A to point B, not to tell you what point B is. I already mentioned this, but again, I want to highlight it, that relationships, regardless of what they are nothing but a vehicle for personal growth. And romantic relationships in particular, because of their emotional charge, are the most significant ones that affect us in the greatest way, and where we have the greatest opportunity for growth, because there is so much at stake, right? So going into a relationship, knowing this, I want you to understand that there's going to be challenges, that there's going to be things not going to be perfect. Even if you find the perfect partner, things not going to be perfect, because it's a vehicle for personal growth. You don't grow in your comfort zone. By default, it's just impossible. If anything, you stagnate and you feel miserable. So this is a very important thing to think about, to always be conscious of the fact that this is a vehicle for growth. How can you use this vehicle for growth to become an even greater version of yourself? This is a question I want you to ask yourself. How would you grow through this experience? Because if there's no growth involved in it, there is no point in involving yourself in this relationship to begin with. So if there are things you need to work on your relationship to others, especially romantically, then write down what they are and use your relationship to work on these things, and do it consciously, rather than running your previous dysfunctional patterns. Because your patterns are going to show up. They always do. You don't have to do anything. They're already on autopilot. They know when to play. All it needs to happen is the right emotional state to be triggered, and you'll be playing those patterns like one of these old boom boxes. You'll be playing the dysfunctional tape. So get very clear on this, what you need to change, and then use your will and intention to change how you respond in those challenging circumstances that in prior relationships have been the most challenging things for you. This is very important, very important. We started this conversation with being authentic and vulnerable. And we're getting back to this point because once we are starting a relationship and we can see that there's some compatibility between partners or between us and what we assume to be our ideal partner, then we want to be very clear in communicating our needs. Because if you expect this other person to be able to read your mind and know exactly what you need so they can support you or provide you with exactly what you need, you're insane. Like you're in Disneyland. You have to have this level of authenticity and vulnerability to clearly communicate clearly in a very clear language, and even if you have to repeat it in 3 different ways so they get what you mean. Because unless you communicate those needs, then you'll have expectations for somebody to do something or provide you with something that they don't even know you need. Right? How good are babies at showing you what do they need? Oh, they're amazing. They cannot speak, but just by using body language, they can tell you very clearly what they need. Right? So I want you to get that good at communicating what your needs are, because unless you do, your partner will never know what your needs are. Nobody reads minds. I used to have a highly dysfunctional, I would say highly dysfunctional, there are very good things about it, but what was dysfunctional in this person that I was, not to blame her, but she never communicated her needs. She always, if something, not always, but whenever something was wrong or something was off, would always just get upset, make a face, and just kind of like close all communication. And I'll be, hey, I know something's wrong. I can see it in your face. I can feel it. Tell me about it. And she would be, oh, well, you should know. Well, I wish I did, but I don't because I don't read minds yet. It would be very interesting if I did. However, I probably don't want to because I can imagine the amount of crap that's going on in there. So get used to be vulnerable again and authentic and speaking your truth. Absolutely, absolutely. Having respect between the partners rather than worshiping. Because you cannot put somebody higher than you are and then you're the slave or you're this like, right, devotee to the queen or the king. No, you have to be on equal terms for this partnership to work, because it is a partnership. A relationship is a partnership. And the only way you can have a functional partnerships and if you're equal parts partners, meaning 50-50, rather than, oh, you know, I'm the one who pulled 75% and you kind of like put your feet up and, yeah, I'm here for you, I'm the slave. Yeah, very well said, Joel. Absolutely, that is so true. It has to be from the place of everybody adds value, because if there is no value exchange in this relationship, what's the fucking point? Everything in life, every relationship could be seen as value exchange as well, or energy exchange. There's always this giving, receiving, giving, receiving, giving, receiving, giving, receiving. So it has to be coming from this place, absolutely. So you have to be very clear on your needs. Once you start to see that you want to get into a relationship, you need to communicate those things, because you cannot expect your partner to read your mind. I'm sorry to disappoint you if that's what you thought, but you'll have to be very clear about it. Now, the next thing would be, how do we set clear boundaries, right? Because we need to have boundaries, kind of like what's a deal breaker. And again, these are things you have to communicate. What are things that really get you all like, I fucking hate this thing and I cannot stand it, right? So that way, your partner, if they really care for you and want to be with you, they will make amends in their own behavior so they don't bother you. Instead of being again upset, getting upset, and not communicating what's upsetting you. You have to be able to say, oh, these are the things that really trigger me. I know this. I obviously have to work on that because I need to take responsibility. But also, you have to communicate what these things are. And then not only communicate with the needs and the boundaries, but also ask your partner, because maybe they don't know how to communicate or they never thought of this, that they have to. So you ask them, hey, how can I support you as a partner? What can I do for you? What do you need from me? And what are these non-breakers that I need to be mindful of? What are these things that trigger you? Please tell me. Let's have this conversation. Again, this is part of the growth experience. These conversations are not like, oh, let's talk about kumbaya, right? And holding hands into the sunset. No, these are the serious related conversations you need to have prior to holding hands and walking and singing kumbaya into the sunset. You have to have these foundations first, so you're very clear where you stand. This is, again, another fundamental piece of the puzzle, because there are a lot of pieces that need to come together, right? A relationship is a dynamic thing. You have two people, things change all the time, circumstances change all the time, moods, emotional states, priorities, values, and so on. So you have to have all these pieces well put together in order for things to work. Always be mindful of this. Communicate clearly, and again, find out where your partner stands by asking them openly to communicate. And if they're having a hard time communicating at first, then allow them to open up. They will. If you're not judgmental, that's the point. Not being a judgmental and say, no, this is crap or whatever, judging them, not being open and just listening. And again, if you realize that these non-breakers for them are something that you cannot hold yourself up to, then maybe walk away, right? If you know that 2 years down the road, there's going to be a significant issues with this, because initially what happens is when we're in a relationship with a new person that we are really fond of, we have this infatuation, this very false sense of attraction. It is an attraction, but it's one that wears out. And over time, it disappears. So first, you see only the good things about this person, all the things that you like and enjoy and so on. And all of a sudden, what they call the honeymoon period is over. And then what you start to see is all the little things that are actually not as they should have been, or maybe you don't like. And then there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. So this is why it's very important to start communicating these things from early on and tapping into this and being mindful of this. That initially, as we are in the relationship, our chemistry is such that because we're on this romantic high, in a way, we don't see all the little things that are off. And sometimes it's actually good if you're unconscious and unaware of those things, to ask a friend, right? And always, especially before making any serious decisions about being with this person, invite a friend, have like a dinner party with friends and stuff, and some of your close friends that know you well, and not necessarily with the mission to observe what's wrong, but then after they've been together and spend time with you together in a mutual environment, they can see things from the side, and then later on ask them out for coffee or whatever, and ask them if they saw something that really got them to think. Because maybe you don't see those things because, again, you're under the spell of love. But this love is going to evaporate at some point. Sometimes it lasts up to 2 years. The point is, at this point, will end. And then if this issue is something that you cannot tolerate at all, then, well, guess what? you're either going to have a very dramatic, nonsense, dysfunctional relationship for a while, trying to create something that works, which never does, especially if your partner is not willing to work on themselves. This is also something that you should be mindful of, that whoever you choose to be in partnership with, they're open, since you already are open to personal growth, that they also are, because the more you grow and the more they stay the same, the more apart you will grow. So this is a very important thing also to discuss with them and see where they stand with that. Again, unless you communicate clearly, and not only communicate, but ask your partner for feedback on these important issues. What are you creating are covered contract and secret expectations, or basically you're setting yourself a failure from the get-go because you weren't clear, honest, and authentic from the beginning. So eventually, all of these things will come back to bite you on the ass, and you got to regret it a lot that you didn't have the balls or the guts to sit down and have this important conversation. Again, relationships are all about growth, and having these relationships is not the most comfortable conversation or joyous conversation to have, but it will allow you to have an amazing relationship long term. So do not create covered contract and unspoken expectations, because you're always going to end up disappointed. That's why we don't set expectations. We have intentions, but we don't have expectations, because the only thing we can only have true control over, and then again, this is through many years of practice, is ourselves. Now, you all probably came here to learn how to attract your soulmate, so let's talk about attraction. That's the next thing we're going to talk about and see how this actually works. Have you ever played with magnets when you were a kid? Feel free to type in the box. I just want to make sure that this analogy makes sense for everyone. Well, here's how attraction works. When you have, doesn't matter if it's the man that's masculine or the female that's masculine and the female that's more feminine and the man that's more masculine, whenever you have two different polarities of energy, they naturally attract each other, just like the plus and a minus on a magnet. It's just this natural vacuum that just gets them together. It's no rocket science, right? As long as there is polarity. Whereas the problem is, let's say, if the woman is very masculine and the man is very masculine. Now, you're going to have a lot of friction there. It's very hard to have this deep level of attraction, because just like if you take two positive sides of the magnet and start pressing them together, you're going to see how much they repel each other. So this is what truly attraction comes down to, having this polarization between masculine and feminine energy. That is fundamental for sexual attraction and chemistry to exist. It's that simple. It really is no rocket science. All you need is this polarity between the energies. And the moment you meet this person, if you are on either end of the spectrum, because the more you lean to one, the more polarizing you will be, and you have this like very magnetic attraction from the get-go, from eye contact without saying anything. Because this is visceral. It doesn't work on a logical, rational, psychological level. It's all of a sudden you just feel it. There's this energy. Because it's magnetic, it's magnetism. So this is exactly what to work on. If you want to become more attractive for the opposite sex, regardless if you're a man or a woman, and you want to have a healthy level of chemistry and sexuality and attraction in your relationship, not just, again, while you're in the infatuation state, but you have a long relationship that you always have this sexuality and intimacy and all that amazing energy exchange, you need to be on the very end of your spectrum, meaning on the extreme. So if you're a woman, I do recommend tapping into your feminine energy more and more and more and more, because this is going to make you irresistible to all real men, or men that have tapped into their masculine, because everything else is just conditioning or disowning parts of ourselves. Because here's the thing, a masculine woman can attract a very feminine man, and this can work for certain amount of time, as long as he's a good provider and wipes her ass for a significant amount of time. However, there will come a moment when the woman becomes like, she starts to resent this man, because he's not the man in the house, he's the wife, or he's like the little boy with his mother. That's the type of relationship they will have. So this is a highly dysfunctional relationship to get into, and end up, because it's going to end up in bad ways for both of you. Both will resent each other. Because there is this, again, this might offend some of you, but this is not a politically correct conversation. This is real conversation, talking about truths that are out there, and it's what it is. Here's the point. There is this idea out there that women can be strong and independent. This is fucking bullshit. Women can be strong and independent in our modern society. Without police and all these social systems that are built, the strength and independence cannot exist on its own. There are not many fields where you're going to see a strong and independent woman doing the type of hard work that a man could do and continue to do. Great example, mining. How many women do you see demonstrating their strength and independence by being a miner, for example? There's just one example, but there are many of those. It's not to say that a woman cannot be strong and independent, but a woman can only feel a woman when she feels safe being in the presence of a man who can hold space for her. So as a woman, if this is an issue you have, that you've been creating this coping mechanism, because that's all it is. When we peel back the onion of why this is so, why is this toxic idea promoted out there, you get to the agenda behind it and whose agenda it is. But this is not something we're going to get into depth. Point being today is that you can be independent, you can be strong, but how long can you play the game of wearing the man's pants in the house and try to be the mother, the man, and everything else, and have a son, right? Instead of having a man in your relationship, you're going to end up having a second baby or a second child. But you didn't sign up for this. You didn't sign up to be a mother. You signed up to be a woman, to be treated as a woman. So this is something to really start thinking about. We all have feminine and masculine energy. Anywhere in the whole universe, where is any creation taking place, there is always the interaction between masculine and feminine, even within. I'll show you very quickly. My left side of my body is the masculine side of the body. The right side is the feminine side. And there are currents of energy that run along the spine that are both masculine or feminine, or you can call them positive and negative. And it has nothing to do with one good being good, the other one being bad. They're just like on magnets or on electricity. There's plus and minus. So this interaction between the currents is what creates this very strong attraction. Very strong attraction. I'll tell you what, for all the women listening right now, if you're on the extreme spectrum of being feminine, you probably know what men you like. But if you're not there yet, I would definitely recommend engaging with things and really allowing your femininity, connecting to this energy, because this is where your strength is. It's by nature. To be really, the more you tap into your femininity, the more energetic, the more radiant, the more amazing you will become. It's who you're meant to be. You're not born a woman to be a man. A man is not born a man to be a woman. Nature does not make those mistakes. Nothing is random. Nature does not make mistakes on those levels. How do you think we became who we became? Meaning the human species evolved to this point. Nature does not make mistakes on those levels. You just, again, have to accept who you are, how you are, love yourself, and start developing this. And then you're going to see how magnetic you become. Because once you're okay with your energy, where you're at, and tap into this energy, then you're going to have this, again, very, very strong magnetism between the masculine and feminine. You being a man, if you're, again, a man, then work on your masculinity. And you will see that the moment you attract or meet a feminine woman, you just like, she doesn't, like, it's just magic. It's like bears on honey kind of deal. So this is something I really want to encourage you to think about, see where you stand with how connected you are to your energy, your natural energy, because we have them both. Again, I can be very feminine sometimes when I feel like I want to dance and this and that. And actually, this is the next thing we're going to talk about, the characteristics of the feminine and masculine energy, or why they're so different and why they are attract each other. Well, by default, the feminine energy is always changing. It's always moving. It's always creating, right? Because without females or without women, the human species cannot continue to exist. You need feminine energy. Is all about creation. It's all about motion. It's all about moving. It's all about emotion, because energy in motion is emotion. And this is the feminine energy. It's always coming from this place of movement, of motion, of emotionality, of creation. And when it comes down to communicating with the different sex, that's where there's a gap that exists between how men process information and how women process information, or how we perceive reality around us. By default, in most cases, again, women always see things based on how it makes them feel, rather than rationally what they think about it. Now, in the Western world, there are women that have been highly trained or conditioned to be very rational. Again, this happens to be a good sign that you are highly disconnected from your feminine energy. I'm not, again, it's not good, not bad, not right, not wrong. It's just ineffective place to be, because you're not connected. If that's the case, you're not connected to your energy, or your true energy, where your strength and power lies within. The masculine energy, on the other hand, is all rational, logical, completing things, just getting things done, just being straight and very efficient with things, no emotionality, very, very rigid, right? So obviously for our men, this is a great thing. But when we come in a relationship or any interaction with a person from the opposite sex, men process things from a logical perspective, rational perspective, where women are always processing it on how do you make them feel. That's the first thing they register, even though if you might not be aware of this, because it happens instantaneously. It's not something that takes a long time. It's a subconscious process. So having this understanding as a man speaking or communicating with women, this will help you to communicate better and to relate better, because then you will be, rather than just saying what you say, you will be thinking, how are you making this person feel? Because this will be a lot more significant than what comes out of your mouth. And then with women is on the other side is realizing that men are very rational. So with them, you have to be very concise and precise about the way you express yourself and have less vagueness, right? Be very clear, because that helps a man to really understand where you stand, what do you need again, what your needs are, what your deal breakers are. So communicating clearly from this perspective, and realizing that, again, Tomo mentioned this in the comments. I think she left now, but I noticed this earlier. For example, that she wanted to travel and went somewhere for a few weeks, and her husband didn't go with her. They're divorced now, from what I understand. But when she came back, the first thing he said was that the dishwasher was broken or needed to be fixed. Well, again, men always process things from that perspective of completing things, fixing things, and so on. Understanding this will help you to make... All right, my camera is not focusing properly, but I'm sure it will refocus. Come on, I'm right here. But understanding this is very important. It's the same for men as well. I'm going to explain what you as a man, in order to be effective when you're communicating with your lady, you need to understand that she doesn't need to be fixed, right? If there's something off, she doesn't need you to fix her. There's nothing to fix. You need to learn to love her as she is, to appreciate her for who she is and how she is. All she needs from you is to shut the fuck up and hold space for her. Just to listen and be empathetic, to create to your feelings, to connect to your feeling center and hold space for her. So she can share with you just how are things like, because again, her processing or the way information is coming into her consciousness is through how is she feeling and experiencing what's happened. So you hold space for her and you just sit and listen with empathy, without trying to say, oh, there's something wrong, we need to fix you, or anything like this. There's nothing to fix. Hold space, hold her hand, hug her, just be there for her. Show her that you're there for her no matter what. This is very important for you to wrap your head around, because again, there is a significant communication gap based on how both sexes process information. And you can imagine how much confusion this can create if you are unaware of this fact, which most people are not. Now, the next point is very, very, very important. Again, I highlight this, is very important. Whenever you are entering into any form of relationship with the opposite sex that you are hoping that it's going to be a long-term relationship with potential, I want you to be aware and conscious of one fact or one element or one characteristic that needs to be present. If it's not there, run for your life. It's called genuine desire. What do I mean by this? That you can clearly see that this other person, your perceived ideal partner, has a genuine desire for you. They'll make the time to see you. They'll make themselves looking good for you. You can see that they have a desire to be with you. You don't have to do anything for them to have any need to see you. Meaning, like, you don't have to be a provider. You don't have to be kissing ass. You don't have to be running errands. You don't have to be their little slave, as somebody pointed in the chat first. There has to be this level of genuine desire. Without this genuine desire for this person, for you, good luck. It's gonna be a waste of time. This person is there not because they like you or love you, or they're there because you're serving or fulfilling a certain need for them, and the moment they kind of get tired of you, bye-bye. They don't make any, the key is they won't make any emotional investment in this relationship, and for them it will be very easy to move on. Again, it's a value exchange. Every relationship, it's a value exchange. So if there is no value exchange, if both parties, and it doesn't matter, it could be two men too, right? I didn't address this, but this is perfectly fine because you actually see this polarity. I've noticed this with gay couples, lesbians or gay men. You see that the one partner is extremely masculine and the other one is very feminine. You can clearly see it. You don't have to be like a data scientist or anything like this. You can clearly see it. The one is very soft and moving and stuff. The other one is very manly. You can see this very clear polarity between them. And that's what keeps them together, even though they're from the same sex. It's the energy that attracts them because they have, again, two energies that are complete opposite of each other, and that's what creates this very strong attraction. If you haven't noticed this before, right now wouldn't be the best time to do it, but go into the whatever, like here in LA, we have West Hollywood where there's plenty of LGBT community, and you can see this on every corner. It's very obvious. Now, to get back to the point of genuine desire, without genuine desire, again, you are in a transactional exchange. You're not in a real relationship, you're in a transactional exchange, meaning that you're doing favors or you're doing something in order to get validation, to get love, to get a tap on the back. Oh, good boy, good boy, good boy, right? Keep running hard, keep working hard, and all these things. So you have to have this genuine desire from the get-go. You need to see this, and it's very, very simple thing to notice. Again, if this person, when you text them, when you call them or whatever, when you want to set up a date, are they excited to see you? Or do they always find reasons not to see you, or it's very complicated and so on and so on? Because if it's not really flowing and simple, I will be like really thinking like, I don't see this genuine desire in this person, because when was the last time you desired something very much so and you resisted of having it if it was handed in your hands? Think about it. It doesn't work this way. If you desire something a lot, you will make yourself available to when someone hands it to you to be like, oh yeah, then I'm running away. Thank you, right? Yes, exactly, kid. Men do fix things for women. It's not instinctual, but again, in the men's psyche, just by default, the masculine energy is about completing things. And wanting to fix something in someone is coming from a place of you do not accepting them as they are. So you think that there is something to fix. It's coming from this place. Rather than accepting this person for who they are, you're thinking there's something off and you can fix it. It's coming from this place and coming with this realization that this person is complete as they are. Obviously, we're all here to learn and grow, but it's not for you to fix it. You as a man, you want to be holding space to make your lady feel seen and safe. That's it, not to fix anything. Unless she's asking you in a very clear way that, oh, you know, something broke, can you fix it or do something about it, then that's a whole different story. What I was referring to is when you're assuming without asking or validating your assumption that something needs to be fixed. Now, your lady, if she needs your help and something to be fixed, she'll be very clear with it. She'll tell you that she needs this because that's what, in a way, you're there for, right? To do the things for her that she cannot do physically most of the time, right? So she'll communicate with you clearly, but in every other moment, there is nothing to fix. Your lady is perfect. Just hold space. What I mean by this, being present with her and connected to your feeling center and allowing her to speak whatever she wants to say and eliciting her desire to share with you. Because this is very important. Unless she feels safe, seen, and not judged, right? If she thinks that you are judging her, she's not going to be very open to sharing what's happening. It's again coming from this place of acceptance. We need to be not judgmental, not to have tolerance, but to be accepted of people as they are and realizing that they're perfect. This brings me to the next point. Conditional love versus unconditional love. Now, this is probably, I kept this last for all of you who stick to the end of the webinar to really get this fundamental understanding. Because someone, if he's still here, he left the conversation. Well, too bad for him. There's going to be a recording. But we have been conditioned from childhood to think and only perceive love. Oh, actually, he just came back. Oh, right on time. Hey, Alejandro. You just right on time. You came back right on time, Alessandro, because I was just about to talk about true love and the distinction between two. And why is this there? Why is this so problematic in society and in our life? We have been conditioned from early childhood by our parent figures, whoever we grew up with, mom, dad, grandma, grandfather, uncle, whatever, whoever was your caregiver. We've been conditioned in a highly dysfunctional way to think that only when we do something good, we are rewarded with love, right? How do most parents that do not know better, not because they're bad people, they just don't have better tools, discipline their kids? Every time they do something they don't want to see anymore, or for the kids to behave again as, they withdraw love by being called, saying no, and whatever. And then every time the child does something good, then they're rewarded with love, with affection, by recognizing it, and so on. So through this highly dysfunctional conditioning, because it is highly dysfunctional, again, it's not to hold any grudges with your parents or whoever you grew up with, being that it has nothing to do with them. They just did what they knew best. But we are all conditioned to think that love is a conditional thing, meaning that in order to be loved, we have to do something good. We have to be successful. We have to, it always this, if, then I'll be loved, right? And we get back to the if-then model. If something is this, then I will be loved. So if I achieve this, if I do this, if something, then I would be loved. So we all been programmed that love is a conditional thing. This is highly dysfunctional. Love is an unconditional. True love is unconditional, meaning that, what do I mean by this? This is part of our own growth journey. And especially when we get into a relationship, again, I mentioned this already, but I'll repeat it again. Training ourselves to let go of our partner or these things in our life that we love and hold most dear to ourselves. Because this is going to allow us to train or developed true unconditional love. Because unconditional love comes from a place of, if your partner is acting and having a tantrum like shit, or your mom or your dad or your friends or some stranger on the street is a total fucking asshole, instead of pointing a finger or judging them or anything like this, you're coming from the perspective of, wow, I can only imagine what's going on in this person's life, and finding the compassion and the love within. Again, for your partner, for your friends, for your family, and so on. Because people are not bad by design. They just don't know better. That's their level of consciousness. This is the place where they're coming from. Do not confuse a person's character with their behavior. These are two different things, distinct from each other. So it's conditioned love, again, is developed, or we're programmed and conditioned to see love as a conditional thing due to our childhood, because we don't have the rational capacity to realize if this is true or not. Because even if you poop your pants when you were a little baby and your mom had to change your pampers, it's not like she stopped loving you. She was actually probably really happy that you were pooping. As most women that have kids would attest to that it's a great thing that the baby's actually pooping. So they're pretty happy. They're not disappointed. But if you're 15 years old and you pooped yourself in the middle of the living room, you're probably, or 7 years old, your parents probably wouldn't be very happy about it. They'll be giving you shit. So coming from this place and this realization and realizing the real love is something that's unconditional. So always loving your partner just because they're your partner, just again, because you love yourself first, and then you love from your overflow the rest of the world. Because again, nobody, here's the biggest piece today that you're going to learn. Nobody ever will love you more than you can ever love yourself. If you develop the self-love, you cannot expect anyone else outside of you. Because again, I started this conversation with this dropping the bomb that you are your own soulmate, because your experience of life occurs within and ends within. Self-sustaining little hermetic bubble, or whatever you want to call it. It's like a little capsule. So you're never going to find someone who would ever love you more than you can love yourself. This is why we started the conversation with this fundamental point, that you need to develop acceptance and love for yourself. And then coming from this place, when you love yourself and you're no longer looking for the validation of someone else, or doing things for people to get the love and all this thing that you feel that you missed growing up as a child, right? Because this is creating this pattern of behavior. You can go into life, have amazing friendships, romantic relationships, and whatsoever, just coming from this place of loving everyone because you love yourself first, and you don't need anyone's love to feel that you're worth loving. That's the key. I want you to really wrap your head around this and start doing again the self-awesomeness inventory and falling in love with yourself. Because the moment you do, the place you will come from into the world will be very different. You will be no longer seeking love and validation. You will be seeking connection. Because once you have the love, then you don't need your partner's love. You just need the connection. This, again, partnership, being a team, playing together, caring for each other, but not from a place of, I will only love you if you love me too, right? Because that's conditional love. I will only love you if you're a good person, or if you don't break my heart, or whatever. No, this is bullshit. This is not love. This is transactional exchange, right? If you do this, then I will do that. This is simply a transaction. It's same in business. So it's up to you to choose on, do you want to have an amazing relationship? And again, Just by having this conversation today and learning all this amazing information, nothing's gonna change. You have to start doing the work. You have to do the reps in live gym for things to start working, right? It's not about the acquiring of the information. I know there's probably tons of things that clicked for each one of you today, but it's not that's gonna change. Now it's time to implement those things into real world and use your next relationship as this vehicle for growth to really become this amazing person that you're meant to be. And then whenever you feel that maybe you grow apart with your partner, you love them so dearly that you know it's better for you to let them go than it is to hold on to them like somebody who's about to drown, grasping for straw and coming from this needy place. Because I'll tell you one thing, nobody likes needy people, even the universe. So start taking this deeply and unpacking all of this information. The last point we're going to cover today before I open for questions, and I hope that you guys do have questions for me, but because I would love to answer all of them, I just wanted to give you all this amazing insight because there's so much to it, right? And again, this is something that I'm really passionate about, so that's why I'm doing it. Now, the next final point is that relationship longevity, or what would define the longevity of relationship besides all these things that we discussed, is an alignment between your values. The more of your values that are aligned or in alignment, the longer your relationship would last. And maybe it will be a lifetime. So this is a fundamental importance. That's why this level of authenticity, of vulnerability, and speaking with your partner as you're starting to create these relationships is fundamental. So you have a very good clarity of where your partner is at, what is important to them, what are their values, and what are yours, or are you compatible on that level? This is fundamental. One thing to remember is that values can change over time. So values are not set in stone. They can vary, they can transition, they can change. However, as long as, again, at least 3 of your values, because most people, if you realistically want to unpack this, they have about 5 values. Everything more than this is just rationale. It's not real value, because how do you know what your values are? The things that you have always time for and energy for. They're non-negotiables for you. For example, one of them for me is my health. I have a 4-hour morning routine that I don't skip a beat for years. This is one of them. Growth, transformation, learning is another value. So I have another 2-hour routine every single day where I focus on an aspect of myself that I want to grow, some things I want to learn. So there's just few things. And here's what is important. Since we all in this conversation are people that are into personal development, self-development, growth, and so on, growth probably, I would imagine, is a value for you as well. And if you find a woman or a man, your partner is somebody for who growth is also a value, that's very important. Because here's what happens. I'll demonstrate it very simply. If your values are aligned, your paths will be parallel for a very long time. But the moment your values are mismatched, here's what's going to start to happen. Little by little, you will grow apart, or you'll just drift away and get lost, and there will be nothing in common left in between. That's why this alignment in value is so fundamental for the longevity of an amazing relationship. It's something to always keep in mind, always be mindful of, and just being aware, self-aware of what your values are is such a significant piece of insight that you can have about yourself, that it's just by doing, like, just again having this level of clarity, is fundamental. Will change the way you understand and know yourself, because this is what's important, right? Knowing yourself, know thyself. This was the number one little proverb on the temple at Delphi in ancient times, the place where all the mystics and all the knowledge was stored, and people would go to ask the monks there or saints to give them wisdom and insight. Know thyself, because it's all within. Now, with that being said, I know this has been a very long conversation. I'm really glad that you guys stick around to the end. First, I want to ask you this before I open up for questions. Is so far, what are your main takeaways? What was the biggest shift? What was something that you learned today that was really significant for you? Please feel free to type it down in the chat. Let's see. Let's share what each one's insight was. Share with everyone so that way we can reinforce it and make the learning process even better. Anybody willing to share? Feel free to unmute yourself. You can also join the conversation. I love that. Okay. Anyone else willing to share? Again, I just want to bring some clarity to what you guys mentioned here. First, I will speak to or add to Camille's comment that she learned that to accept her partner as he or she is and not trying to change them. Here's the thing. Nothing gives us a right to change anyone. The only thing we can change is our relationship or how we hold them or whatever is, let's say, bothering us in our partner, to start seeing it not as a flaw, but and not something that needs to be fixed, but something that's unique about them. And start appreciating this, because if we are coming from this place, our partner will come from the same place. They'll meet us halfway, especially as far or as long as our communication is there and it's clear and we are capable of communicating those needs and so on and so on. Because nothing gives you the right to change anyone. You can only yourself be the example. So be the example. Do not be the critic. Nobody likes a critic. I don't know a single person that likes a critic. And criticizing does never work. How do you train animals to do amazing things? Not by criticizing their wrong behavior or by punishing them when they behave in a bad way. You encourage positive behavior. So this is not to fix anything, not to change, but every time, let's say, your partner is displaying the behavior that you want to see more of, encourage it, right? Recognize it, reward it, And then you're going to see how quickly they will change. But not by telling them, oh, you know, you have flaws. Because the moment you do, they start to defend themselves. They become a victim and you become their victimizer. This is highly ineffective. This doesn't work. I've seen this in my family. My mom doing this to my dad and my dad doing this to my mom for too long to know that it doesn't work from, you know, from personal observation. So I definitely do not recommend it. Joel mentioned, why do you want to be in a relationship? Well, that's another definitely solid point. If you can provide or find fulfillment of your needs that you thought up to this point that you need a relationship to be in a relationship to have fulfilled, and now all of a sudden you found a very simple way to fulfill those needs, then why do you want to be in a relationship? And Kit, on your comment, I wanted to add that here's the thing. Again, once you come to a place of loving yourself, you fall in love with yourself, from then on, again, setting expectations that somebody's going to love you as much as you love yourself is you're setting yourself for a very serious disappointment. There's nobody that can love you more than you can love yourself. The fact that you love yourself and you're madly in love with yourself doesn't mean that your partner or someone else will love you as much as you do. And not because there's something wrong, not because they don't love you, not because you don't deserve this, but I'll explain a very simple reality. In each and every single one of us own lives, we are the star in our own movie. At best, every other person is either a supporting actor or, at worst, a movie extra. So by default, in my life, everyone is an extra. Even though they're my love partner and so on, but my life revolves around me, and I'm the center of the universe, in a way. That's why in ancient times, for the longest of times, human beings, before the invention of the telescope and Galileo, it's actually Copernicus, who discovered that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, right? And in our own lives, most of us feel, again, that we are the center of the universe until life shows you a different evidence. However, because of this, by default, in my life, I am the leading actor. But in your own life, Kit, in your own life, Alessandro, Camille, Joel, Rosanna, and son, you are the star of your own movie. So nobody besides yourself can see you as the star of the movie and appreciate you as the star of the movie, because in each person in their own life, by default, is the star of their movie, and everyone else their life includes is just a supporting actor, again, or a movie extra. So by default, nobody ever can love you as much as you are. So do not set this unrealistic expectations. I just want to clear things out so that you don't leave from this conversation having this very, very impossible assumption. However, if you love yourself, if you're madly in love with yourself, chances are very high that any woman out there would love you in her own way, because there is another misconception that we didn't have time to discuss, because there's so many layers and distinctions that go deeper, but the way women and men love is very different. It's absolutely different. There's this misconception that, you know, women and men love in the same way. They don't. Actually, men are a lot more romantic and loving than women from the perspective of the way they love. A man in a healthy relationship that loves his lady will protect her to his last breath. He'll give his life for her. On the other side, with women, not that they cannot love, but the way they express their love is very different. They come from a lot more utilitarian place. Because if you, let's say, unfortunate, right? This is just talking worst case scenario to be realistic, because this is always a probability or a possibility. Everything is possible. If you are to pass away and your lady is left alone, she'll most likely find somebody else to fulfill that gap that was left and love him as much as she loved you. Maybe she'll miss you, maybe whatever, but she'll very quickly adapt to this need, especially if there are children and so on and so on. So the love we express, men and women, it's a significant difference. So again, this has to do with the communication styles and how we process information with the masculine and the feminine. It's just two different things. Plus, once there are babies, if you're in a committed relationship and you have children, you will see your lady will love you, but she's not going to love you the way she loves the children, especially if she's a good, healthy mom, right? If her wiring psychologically is good. She's always going to love the kids first, and she's always going to take, by default, the side of the children, unless she's done a lot of self-work and realized how important it is to actually support you and see you as her partner and take your side, not necessarily take your side, but always has your back. Because the kids will grow, they will leave the home. Eventually, you have an amazing relationship. You'll be going into your silver years together. So the kids won't be there anymore. The kids are there temporarily. Having the kids is another level of complexity that brings a whole new dimension of growth. Because the moment you become responsible for someone else's life beyond yourself, life changes dramatically. So with that being said, I want to open up this webinar for questions. I would love to answer any questions that you guys might have. Please go ahead. Shoot. Do you guys have any questions? You feel free to tap them in the chat box as well, while I'm rehydrating and catching my breath, even though I don't need it. Can you, Camille, provide me with some more clarity to stop those patterns from your perspective or from your partner's perspective? Do you find yourself to be the one running those patterns? Oh, I see. Okay, so your partners tend to be the codependent ones, the needy ones, the ones that are like attached their umbilical cords to you. Well, here's the thing. Whatever you're doing, you're attracting men that see you as their mom. Most likely that's the case, because that's what is triggering this. And how you can stop or change this pattern, it's very little that you can do to change the pattern. You just have to have better choices. And the moment you sniff out somebody who's needy, because you're going to know if they're needy, you know that they're codependent. Somebody who's needy is definitely codependent. Somebody who's independent, rather than meaning that, and maybe there's something you enjoy initially, the attention you get, how engaged they are with you and wanting to have more of you all the time, but this is not a good sign, right? You have to be able to spot this from the get-go, because there's nothing you can change. The only thing that can change is the person themselves. If they realize that they're not helpless, you're not their mom, but this is not something to go and tell them in their face. It's not going to change anything. It's something that your partner has to do if they're willing to and they realize. The only thing you can do is become better at spotting those things. Maybe you joined the conversation later, but I was talking about this earlier in the webinar. Now, I'm going to talk about this again. I'm just going to repeat what I said or reframe it so you can see what we discussed earlier. That once you realize what you're looking for a partner, one of the main questions through the webinar today was to ask ourselves, what are the qualities and character traits of our or my ideal partner? What do I want to see in my partners and in my partner? And then what are the deal breakers for me? What are the no-nos? And how do I quickly evaluate when go on dates and start to get intimate with someone if this person has these traits that I seek, and if they have those traits that I don't want to have more of, or I don't want to partner with those traits, so you can quickly filter them out and know that this is not the right person for you. Because if you're ending up with these partners all the time, then it's very easy to point the finger and to say, oh, it's my partner's fault because they're codependent. But if you know you don't like codependent people, why do you keep falling back for them? Right? It's a pattern that you're running because you're falling for them and they're falling for you. It's a mutual interaction. It's not just your partner that is codependent. Obviously, you are finding maybe your level of significance. I don't want to go deep into this psychological framework of the 6 human needs. Maybe you guys are familiar or not, but one of them is significance. And the other one, that's another fundamental one, is love and connection. And maybe because initially you get a lot of significance by being needed, you feel great, or by feeling loved and connected, but then eventually you start to choke, right? Because you don't have space. I would imagine that's the case. I'm making an assumption here. I'm not saying that this is the case, but this is probably what it is. You become satiated, right? There comes a time when it's like, or maybe, again, not to put the ball in your partner's field, but the other thing is that you're unable to clearly set boundaries and communicate them to your partner. Because if you're clear with your partner and say, hey, this doesn't work for me, I need space, or whatever the case is, right? Do not put the control or power over your life and your decisions in somebody's space. It's all you. Always take responsibility for yourself, the situations you find yourself into. If you don't, you're a victim. And victim mentality is something to grasp, really hard to escape from, because it's not a good place to be. It's very easy to blame the other side. It's very hard to take responsibility and be like, oh, what can I do better here, right? What can I change about my behavior that would give me better results? Or how can I set boundaries better? This would be the only thing that you can do, set better boundaries. But there is a time when you can set those boundaries, and then there's times when maybe it's too late to set those boundaries because they've been broken so many times that at this point it's very hard to set those boundaries unless you want to really rock the boat. There you go. That's good. Thank you for admitting this, right? This gives you, basically, you're running this pattern too. You have a pattern. That's why you fall for this initially. And maybe that's because growing up as a child, you didn't felt seen from your parents or whoever was the significant figure in your life whose attention you wanted, right? Because that's what by enjoying this need initially, you're satiating this lack of what you thought as a kid was somebody seeing you and paying attention to you. So this is something to think about. You know what your patterns are. That's why part of the conversation earlier was what patterns are we running based on our relationship with, if we are a man, with our mother, and if we are a woman, with our father. And obviously this has to do with the male figure in your life. Maybe your dad didn't pay enough attention to you. So understanding that this behavior is coming from this place, or whoever it was that you really wanted the attention from, now you, again, satiating what you perceive to be lacking. What would help you to break this pattern, again, is to realize that, let's say it was your father or whatever, whose male figure attention you wanted, again, and feeling needed or seen, was to realize that that's just how they express their love. It wasn't like because you were not needed, just maybe they had emotional blockages, so they couldn't express their emotionality. A lot of men, again, as we were talking about how men are very, very locked up in their head. They're very rational and they've just been programmed this way. And maybe that's why that person wasn't able to give you the affection that you want as a woman. Because women don't want to be talked to as if they were soldiers, but most dads that have no better tools and understanding tend to do this. Right? Very short, again, logical, short, to the point. That's it. Right? It's not like they didn't love you. They loved you, but they just didn't know how to express it. So let's see. Yeah, I'm just reading your comments, guys, and just to make sure I'm not missing a question. Alessandro, so to answer your questions with the limiting beliefs and all that kind of stuff, I want you to realize that basically what you've created over time, you've conditioned yourself and you created the habit most likely to listen to the criticizer, to the inner critic voice. And this is just a habit. You can replace it. But in order to replace it, again, 𝗞𝗲𝘁𝗀𝘀's program is great to begin with, but here's the thing. You need to understand how your mind works, especially not the conscious mind, but the subconscious mind. The most powerful thing to change your beliefs or to reprogram yourself is auto-suggestion, or meaning you doing it. Now, if you create a recording, a hypnotic recording with your own voice talking to yourself, this is going to be a lot more effective than 𝗞𝗲𝘁𝗀𝘀's program. 𝗞𝗲𝘁𝗀𝘀's program is just like the balancing wheel on the bicycle. It's something to start using or playing with, but it's not going to be the affirmations or the programming that you can implant your own self by, again, first, I already mentioned this. I don't know what these limiting beliefs are. It has to do with being your feeling of self-worth and feeling that you're worth loving. And tell me about those limiting beliefs, what these limiting beliefs are, because they're limiting beliefs, and I'll tell you what tools you can use to deal with those. Okay. Well, Rosanna, probably this is driven again by creating this. You've been, again, I'm just making assumptions. You've enjoyed your time being with men who are not committed and being in one night stands or in short term relationships, never willing to commit to, again, always admit and take credit for your part in the relationship, regardless of what it was. One night stand, 1 week long interaction, whatever it was, always take credit for your own doings first. This belief is created by your lack of evidence, right? Because the only reason you would have this belief is because you lack evidence of the opposite. However, lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. The fact that you don't have evidence that you weren't being loved for long term and being in an amazing relationship doesn't mean that you're not. You just, again, have a very shitty way to filter for the right partner for you or someone who's committed. Maybe this is driven again by your childhood patterns and relationship with your dad. Maybe the person you saw as your dad or father figure in your life was somebody who wasn't very available or always was gone, wasn't much into your life, always was missing. So you had this kind of like, you see him for one day, maybe your parents were divorced and you rarely saw your dad and something like this. So it's driven from that. I always like to peel back the onion all the way backwards, because that's where these patterns are coming from. So if you want to, feel free to type in. If you want to join me for this conversation, I will coach you for a moment here, guys, because it's easier to have a conversation than me having to read these the comments. I mean, I can, but it's better for everyone's sake to have this conversation and you tell me more, because I can help you more in this way if you feel comfortable. But again, always peel back to whatever your relationship with men is as a woman. Always look back to what your relationship was with your dad or whoever was your father, the person you saw as your father figure. The same holds true for men. Whatever your relationships tend to be, or the problematic, like what sticks out in your relationships with women, always peel back to what your relationship with your mom was, because that's where those patterns are created. This will give you a lot of clarity why your patterns is such. What are you actually seeking to gain? Or what's driving your behavior? Because if you want to understand yourself, realize that human, again, I said this and I'm going to keep on repeating it every webinar. If you join me for another, everything in the human condition is behavior. I mean, it's habitual. It's a pattern. We run patterns. If you want to know yourself, if you want to know people, learn to notice patterns. And this will change everything, because then you can be very conscious of what patterns you're running. And then it comes down to realizing that all of these patterns, the most significant ones, are always implanted or conditioned in early childhood. And who are the people that we look up to as children? Our parents. So that's a very good starting point to peel back the onion and realize where is this stuff coming from. Well, Alessandro, you have a interesting Well, Alessandro, here's the thing. You are dealing with the fundamental fear that all human beings have, which is the fear of not being good enough. Right? And this will be expressed in any aspect of life, not just relationships, with any different areas. It will stick out in a lot of different areas, but especially in those areas that you care the most for, or the things that are to you, you put most importance on. It will stick out in this, and the key is, again, accepting yourself and developing this self-love and repeating every single day to yourself, I'm enough, I'm enough, writing it just like 𝗞𝗲𝘆 she suggested this, and I suggested to everyone, grabbing a marker or something of that sort and writing I'm enough on your mirror, so you see this every single day. And then every single day after meditation, if you meditate or you have a process where you get internalized and you slow down your mind, you can say, rather than I am enough, why am I so amazing, so awesome? Like terming it or framing it as a question, because then the conscious mind cannot refuse it. It's a question. It's not a statement. And asking yourself over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then again, what I just said in response to Camille's question. The lack of evidence is not an evidence of lack. And probably because you fear that you'll be hurt if you go out there and meet someone. And maybe again, this is coming from your relationship with your mom. How was your relationship with your mom? This would be a good place to start, again, peeling down or back the onion to see where is this belief coming from? Why is it there? Right? Because we always want to go, rather than the manifestation or the what seems to be visible, to what is causing it. Instead of looking at the effect, we want to look at the cause. Because if we remove the cause, there is no effect. Without a cause, there is no effect. So we always want to peel backwards and figure out, why is this happening, right? What is causing this? Always. Rather than looking at the symptoms. Because the symptoms, they can manifest in different ways. So we always want to go back to the source. Because we eliminate the source. And again, if you shift how you hold things about your past in your head, even though the past will be there, it's not going to be any longer a problem for you, because it's only how you hold it in your head, how you have registered this memory in your head, whatever has created this dysfunctional belief. And it's much easier, it's much harder to program or reprogram your subconsciousness than it is to go and peel back the onion and work from that perspective. It's a lot more effective. Both ways works. Which one is the highway, the other one is taking the scenic route. if that makes sense. Well, here's the thing, kid. Whenever this has been a challenge with my parents, right? Because with parents and father, like all these figures, though we wish they were behaving towards us in a different way or towards one another, like maybe mother, father, and so on, is to realize that this is part of your growth journey, to find the passion, the compassion, to see your mom's behavior not as her flaw or her being wrong or she's pressing buttons, but to take ownership of the fact that you become reactive to her pressing the buttons. Because here's the thing, if I was to give you the remote control of the TV and you can press as many buttons as you want, but I went and I pulled off the cable from the grid, what happens? Will you be able to do anything with that remote?
Sorry, Martin. Could you tell again? I didn't get your about remote.
What I was saying is, if you, because kid's question, I'm just answering kid's question. I'm the sole caregiver to my mother, my only parent, who reinforces or pushes those buttons moment by moment. How do I adopt new beliefs when immersed in all that? So this analogy I was giving is a response to kid's question. If I was to give you the remote control, which has all the buttons, but I was to take out the plug or disconnect the cable, or the power cable of the TV, you can press any button you want. You can even eat the remote control. Nothing's going to change. You're not going to turn on the TV. You're not going to switch the channels. Nothing's going to happen. So it's not about removing the buttons. It's about taking ownership of your own, again, emotional maturity and not reacting like a little child, because that's what you're doing. Every time your mom is pressing a button, you're reacting like a little child, rather than realizing what these buttons are. And next time your mom is playing the same tape, because to her, she's not, here's what I want you to realize again. I think we already spoke about this last time. She's not doing this on purpose. She doesn't even know she's doing this. It's part of her habitual behavior and her pattern. So she's just doing it on autopilot. She doesn't even know she's doing it. So realize that this is not coming from a place of her, she is wanting to press your buttons. The only reason the buttons work when she presses them is that you entertain those buttons, you give them energy, you continue to be resistant to them, you engage with them. The point is, next time this happens, observe it and laugh at your mom for the little child that she is. Because she's just a little child, a little lost child. Have the compassion again, because that's the only thing that's going to help you to create this compassion with you and love her as she is, understanding that she's not doing something because she wants to press your buttons or anything like this. She just doesn't know better. She's just how it is. Have this empathy for your mom and realize where she's coming from. She's just a little child, a little lost child into this big world. She doesn't know better. So every time this happens, instead of being reactive, be responsive and choose love rather than fear or whatever, anger, whatever this emotion this is triggering within you. Whatever this emotion is, transmute it on the positive. I don't know what emotion this or these buttons trigger within you. Again, as we spoke, you're present at the last webinar. We can transmute emotions as long as they live on the same spectrum, from the negative to the positive. So, for example, if you tell me what this emotion is, I can tell you what the positive is. So next time this happens, instead of reacting and playing your own tape too, you can start playing a new tape, because you have free will to choose a new option at all times. Now, this is a choice. Again, whether you choose to do it or not, you have already made a choice. So you always have to take responsibility. All relationships are mutually created, and the dynamic is mutually created. So always take credit for your participation or for your end of the deal. I see. Well, here is the thing. Again, you have to come to the conclusion that maybe in this lifetime, again, because you never developed or have focused on developing the self-love that you can develop within, you always look for your mom to give you the love and the validations and so on. You are good enough. You are good enough, because if you're not good enough, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be born. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing. I'm sure there are many others. Even if you cannot see this in your mom, I'm sure you have friends. There are other people in your life that love you and adore you and give you this, but it's just because your mom never give you this, fulfills this need for you, you think it's lacking. Again, nobody can provide you with the level of self-acceptance and love you have to create within yourself. This is something you nurture within. You become a gardener and you farm self-love rather than looking for little deposits from somewhere else, like how you call them, beggars. There's nothing wrong with that, with begging people, right? If that they happen to fall down on their luck or something. I just, again, as I mentioned earlier, I helped a couple of dudes yesterday who were picking up empty cans and bottles from the trash cans. I bought them a meal and hooked them up. But point being, don't be a beggar, become the bank, right? Because everything else is coming from a needy place. The other way around, you're printing your own money, kind of, in that analogy. Yes, these old patterns have been developed long time ago, right? In order to change them again, you have to give evidence to your subconscious mind. Everything can be changed. The key to change is not resisting what is, but choosing a new option and starting to implement, install, record, lay down, whatever you want to call it, this new pattern. Repetition. Again, this is why the awesomeness inventory list is something I set for you to do for 1 year. If this is such a problem for you, why are you holding off on doing it? Is it too much to invest 5 minutes in yourself every single day? You already invested 3 hours of being here on the webinar with me. What is 5 minutes? Right? Again, I can supply you with so much knowledge. I can go on for hours. It's something I enjoy doing. But unless you take action in your life, nothing's fucking gonna change. Nothing at all. You have to take action. You have to start doing the work, the reps. Think of it this way. Whenever you want to install a new pattern, a new belief, a new habit, a new way of behavior, it's like if you walk outside from your winter resort house in the morning, and last night it snowed a lot and everything is just covered with this deep new fresh snow. Every step you make creates this little path, so you go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and little by little you start to see how this little path is forming in the snow. So it's the same thing with this. You have to keep going backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards every single day, doing the reps, going in the gym, and doing these things. By new information, I can give you tools, I can tell you what to do. But unless you take action and do something about it, nothing's gonna change. So I've already suggested something really simple. I do recommend you guys start doing it, and then creating this set of questions of why you're so awesome, why you love yourself so much, and so on. Repeating these things to your subconscious mind every day, every single day. It's called auto-suggestion. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. Here is the thing I don't want you to realize. Questions are the steering wheel of the mind. What do I mean by this? Affirmations are crap. Or just saying, oh, I'm amazing. When you've implanted this deep belief that you're shit. What you want to do is ask yourself, why am I so amazing? Now, when you implant a question in your subconscious mind, over time, through repetition, once it gets seeded in the mind, your mind will start to give you answers to your question. However, if you ask yourself, why I suck, why does my life suck, why am I not enough, why am I not feeling enough, you're always going to find validation for that. So you want to start installing these questions that are the right type of questions, or the questions that are pointing your oil tanker, because this is how the subconscious mind works, right? We have control only over our conscious mind, which is a very small part of the whole puzzle. However, what's leading the show is the subconscious mind. And through the conscious mind, we can seed and plant ideas into the subconscious mind. But this takes repetition, just with like an oil tanker. What happens on the oil tanker when you steer the wheel? After 30 minutes, you actually start to see that it's starting to move. But immediately as you steer it, nothing. It's keep going straight. So it's something that you have to do. You have to become an emotional and mental athlete. You have to develop the practice. Just like you brush your teeth, you probably eat every day, and you go to the restroom. Well, create a habit for this as well. And fucking do it every day, because it counts, because it matters. So keep on doing it. You already know what you need to do. All you have to do is do it. I understand where is this coming from? You guys need certainty that this is gonna work. Where the only way you're gonna know if it's gonna work if you do it. I'm pretty well wired, in my personal opinion, and I've worked on all my past trauma, but I continue to fucking do it for 30 minutes every single day. Because if I'm not programming myself the way I want to program myself, something else is. It's not a question if we are being programmed, it's who and how is programming us. And giving that choice, I'd rather program myself and brainwash myself for success, self-love, and all these things, then hope that maybe I'll stumble upon something that all of a sudden overnight changed my life. This shit doesn't happen. I know in this world that we live nowadays with all instant gratification and instant communication and all these things, people have left with this very twisted idea that all these people out there on the internet showing their success and all these fancy toys and stuff, like they are overnight success, because the only thing they show you is the success. They show you the shiny things, but they don't show you when they were wiping their ass with newspapers and eating fucking garbage from the whatever the fuck it is, right? They don't show you these moments. You don't see these on social media. It's all about, oh, see how significant I am, how great my life is, and how amazing everything is, right? But you know how much consistent work it took? There are two things that are necessary for success in life. Doesn't matter if it's in business, if it's in your emotional life, it's spiritual life. Time and consistency. With these two factors, you know you will be successful. All you have to do is show up and do the fucking reps. That's what it's required. Exactly. Small daily steps. Chipping at it every fucking day with no excuse. You have to do it. You have to become an athlete on all levels. I like to call them, I'll just simplify because I have a proprietary system that I use when I coach and teach my clients, and I've developed even further as I've almost finished my first book that I'm working on called the Ineffability Formula, which is inside our advanced guide on how to work out from the inside out. What do I mean by this? The main fundamental element of my system is spirit or spirituality. Then we have intuition, then we have energy, then we transition to mind, emotions, and finally it's body. All of these components you can exercise every single day, just like you can go and exercise in the gym. There are different exercises for each one. Obviously, by lifting weights, you're not going to be exercising your intuition. But you can exercise every day, so you can become a spiritual athlete. You can become an intuitive athlete. You can become an energy athlete. You can become a mental athlete. You can become an emotional athlete. And finally, you can be a physical athlete, right? So you can be an athlete in all of these aspects. All you need to do is do the fucking work. Nobody's going to do it on your behalf. Like Buddha didn't become enlightened by sitting down and somebody all of his disciples meditating on his behalf while he was eating McDonald's or whatever, right? Buddha had to meditate his ass out to get enlightened. So this is what's necessary. You can become extraordinary in your life. All you have to do is to show up in the gym of life every single day and do the reps. If you do this, you can be sure of success in time. And obviously, you have to be patient because it's not going to happen overnight. I want you to write down in the comments if this was of value to you, if this was worth your time. And I know you guys stick around, but what do you guys think? Did you guys enjoy the webinar? Did you learn something useful? Was it worth it for you to attend? Share with me, please.
Could I talk, Martin?
Sure, absolutely. Please talk. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. I was at work and I couldn't see the complete webinar. I went late. But I found at the end of the webinar that I found very informative. Some of things that my experience, I recently divorced from my wife. But the things that I did, the practice that I did with my wife recently was that I create a list for me and ask from my wife. For example, the biggest problem at the 17 years ago, I married, and I had my self-esteem was down to earth. It was, I can put a number from 0 to 100. My self-esteem at that time, 17 years ago, was 5. My wife was 95, as she said, and I agree. But I think it was fake. Even now my self-esteem, I believe that it's potentially 70%, because before I was very shy, I couldn't even speak, come to now I'm very good at that. Other things, my decision making was slow. It still is slow, but much better than before. But I made a list that, for example, I fell in love, it was 95 at that time, my wife was 30, and different, it's I don't want to talk too much, but it was a complete list about many items. And I think that if I did this one at the first year, we didn't, it was traditional at that time, but we can divorce very soon at the first year. Actually, we had problem at that time, but we couldn't, but because I didn't measure. And I think it's kind of feedback that we do and bring on a paper is very important. So I didn't see your webinar completely, but I think this one, I believe from now on, if I want to connect with anyone, I will create this list and bring out the paper and put a number that how much. And the most important thing, I believe, is acceptance after bringing this list on the paper. The most important thing is the acceptance, that other person accept my character completely and me as well, so we can live long together, I believe. And it should be every 6 months, every 1 year, we should measure ourselves, measure our weakness and potential, again bring on the paper and give the number, give the score to ourselves. I believe that's very important. If I did this one before, I was ahead. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing this point with you and being vulnerable and coming from your own experience with your wife. This is wonderful that you have this level of insight, or at least the capacity to come from this place and hold this space and have this level of feedback and provide feedback. Because here's the thing. In order to improve in life, regardless of what it is, first you need self-honesty with yourself, right? Because if you cannot be honest with yourself to acknowledge what are traits within you that you need to work on, then if somebody else was open and giving you constructive criticism, not just bombarding you with shit, you're always going to come from a defensive place rather than taking it and considering it, right? Because there's always people see things from a very different perspective from the side, right? They see things, our patterns that we might be very blind to, again, because these patterns that we run, they're run on the subconscious level. We don't know they're even taking place most of the times. The moment you start to realize what patterns you run is when you become a very good awareness meditator, or you've meditated so much that you are 100% self-aware throughout your waking hours in the day. So you always know what thoughts are in your mind, what feelings are in your body, what is the pressure on your feet or on your butt when you sit in it, what's the temperature on your skin. You're conscious of all these things. So if you're running a pattern, you know you're fucking running a pattern. So then you have a choice. Do I want to change this pattern? Is it working for me? Because obviously there are good habits and patterns. We don't want to destroy them. It takes effort to create them, but we don't want to sustain the ones that are not. So this is very important. I'm glad that you brought this point of sharing and writing it down. Also keeping records, seeing how you're making progress, because what's measured can be proved. Meaning that acceptance, not just for your partner, but accepting also where you at. So from then you know how far you can go if you want to take that journey, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, son. Yeah, absolutely. We all have work to do. Again, this is something that you have to realize. Hopefully in this lifetime, the sooner the better. Is that if we didn't have to learn and grow, if we didn't have things to work on and polish about our self, we would not be in this reality. We will be ascended masters or saints that have disciples. There'll be churches just like for Jesus and Christendom and whatever religion you want to use that's popular there. We'll have churches and we'll have followers. You won't be playing this game. If you're in this game, there's room for improvement. And it's not coming from a place there's something wrong with you, but it's coming from the inspiration. Wow, what is fucking possible for me? Like, how much more can I grow? Because the point of growing in this game of life is for us to add value to others, to realize what our gifts are, and to go and fucking give them to the world, because we're not brought here to be fucking mediocre. If that was the case, we wouldn't be fucking playing this game. What is normalizing mediocrity or normal? What's like even normal? The word normal is equal to fucking mediocre. Average is society. Society is normalizing being average, being normal, being whatever. It's fucking mediocre. It's garbage. We all have infinite potential. It's how much you aspire to squeeze out from all the juice that's there. There's a lot of juice to squeeze. How hard do you want to squeeze is the question. How hard are you willing to play? Are you here to play full out, or are you here to sell yourself short? That has to do with your relationships, has to do with everything. I just like to tell things as they are, to give it to your face. So if you didn't hear it from me, you're probably not going to hear it. I'm a straight talker. I don't like to sugarcoat things, because it's better for you to hear things as they are now, rather than sell yourself short and then be on your dying bed with a list of regrets. Because that's the worst place to be in. And I don't want you to end there, because I know what's possible for you. Just like I know what's possible for me, because I live this every single fucking day. There's so much room. Everything is possible. If you set your mind to it, you can be a record breaker. You can be a billionaire. You can be changing lives or whatever. As long as it's coming from this place of contribution, showing other human beings, being a great example, right? Because it's not about the ego of me, like, oh, look how great I am and everybody sucks. It's from the place of like, I want to be an amazing example for the rest of humanity, how all we can be fucking amazing and make this world, this game of life, extraordinary experience, not just for me, but for everyone else, because it could be. But everyone has to do their part. Not trying to change everyone else and saying, oh, look at me. You know, everything is cool in my life. Everyone else should change, right? Change the world. Change the world. No, change yourself. You cannot change the world. The only thing you can change is yourself. And you know how changing yourself, how hard it is. Now go try to change the world. A lot of men tried, right? There are a lot of men out there with a lot of fucking issues they didn't want to work on, that waged war, like all of the good examples. All of these men, right? Because it was very few, I don't think there were any women that had all the energy to deal with their fucking issues in that way. They're written in history, right? History doesn't lie. All the wars, all the bullshit, that's all came from ego, from one man's incapacity or inability to deal with their own fucking demons. So they had to go and wage a world war on the rest of the world, to conquer countries, to show how significant they are, because that's how small they felt inside. You're never going to change your internal reality by changing your external content. Context is definitive. Content could be anything. So that's why it's important to focus within, to work out from within. Because then you become the thermostat. Instead of being the thermometer, measuring what the temperature in the room is, You decide what the temperature should be, and you set it, and it remains like that. That's why it's so important. Now I want to share some extra resources for you guys, because that's about it. It's been 3 hours and 20 minutes or so for those of you who stayed throughout the whole experience. I really, really appreciated that you guys came along. But I have a coaching call coming up with a client. I just did a podcast earlier. I'm starting an amazing podcast, and I just had my first guest. And I still need more energy to maintain and have to give more. But I want to share some more resources with you. I hope this was valuable to you. The first resources, I'm just going to post them in the chat box now. So save them somewhere so you don't lose them, because also, I just want to mention this, the webinar will be recorded, or it's recording. So once we're all done, I'll upload it to my YouTube channel, and you can refer back to it if you want to, because as I said earlier, first time for information, second time for transformation, third time to actually start getting those concepts on a deeper, more emotional and next being level. Because first we hear things, okay, cool. Then maybe you forget. Tomorrow you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you heard something useful, but then you don't do anything about it. So watch the video again, take notes, right? Because I talked about so many things. There's so much packed here, you have to unpack it for days. But I'm gonna post in the chat box now. First, I will offer you all, whoever takes me up on my offer, a complimentary 1 hour long coaching session. If there is something you want to work on that's been holding you back for a long time, and some obstacle you want to overcome that you really feel is dragging you down, and you've been really procrastinating on, and whatever the fuck it is, let's fucking crush it. Also, if you have an amazing opportunity right now, and again, you have insecurities, something is you're just not willing to play full out and go and claim your prize, let's fucking get you the fucking prize. So book your coaching call. I'm gonna serve you the out of your mind. But again, you see how I am. I'm straight up. I tell you things as they are. There's no point for me to sugarcoat things, because sugar leads to diabetes. I focus on transformation, not constipation. So let's make some progress here and get things going. So I'm gonna post the link for the coaching, and then the next one is a complimentary 5-day-long holistic transformation challenge I've created, which you can also sign up for. There's a lot of value there. It's delivered through email. There's different videos every day on different subjects, and also worksheets that you should definitely work on, because these worksheets have a lot of value. Those exercises, again, because it's not about the information, it's about the transformation, right? Because that's what you're here for. If you want information, well, here's I'll give you the greatest hack, so you don't never have to acquire any new information. If you take your cell phone and you go to Google has access to all the fucking information in the world. So don't try to remember it. Go to Google and look for what you're interested in. The information is there. What's gonna change things is your behavior, and installing that behavior on your way of being, right? Your identity, the way you are. So you no longer do these things. They're just who you are. So this is very important. So do the worksheets. Also, again, I have tons of upcoming webinars, so I'm going to post the link with all the different webinars. And for those of you, if there's some locals here from LA area or California, I also host regularly, or used to prior to the COVID nonsense happening, workshops in person. So I'd love to see you in person if you want to join us. So I'll post that. Then the next link would be my YouTube channel. So go subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when the video is posted and you can watch it. And there's also a pre-recorded 1 hour long or so lessons Yes. I'll just post the links in a moment. I just want to finish what there are pre-recorded lessons for each and every one of the webinars. So let's say if you're interested in the webinar, but you're not sure what I'm going to be talking about, you can sit down and listen to the video, to the 1 hour lesson. There's going to be plenty in it. Obviously, in the webinar, we'll have time for questions and to go deeper, but it will give you an idea of what the webinar is going to be about. So this is also something that you're going to find on my YouTube channel. And then you can connect with me on Instagram. I post things from time to time. I'm not very engaged with social media. I like to be social in person. And obviously, thank God there's Zoom now allowing us to have this interaction. I'd much rather do it in person, but then I can connect with you guys from all over the world, right? Which is something that's pretty cool, and especially in that conversation. You're welcome, Joel. I love serving you guys. You see, this is what I discovered some time ago, that this is something that I really enjoyed, and there was a lot of signs the universe was giving me because I was focused on something else, and I was passionate about it, but it wasn't something that was giving me this energy that the more I do it, the more energy I get, right? Because this is kind of like the hack, how you figure out if you found that thing that you're born to do. The more you do it, the more energy you get. You don't get exhausted. You just get like, let's do more. It's almost like an addiction. So let me post this in the comments, and you guys go ahead and copy them or save all the links. So once there we go. Save the links. And if anybody wants to have final comments, want to ask me a final question, we can do one more. I can take one more question if anything, or you guys just want to say something and so on. You're welcome to. And you're welcome, Alessandro. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining and allowing me to serve you. This is what I live for, and I enjoy it a lot. So. Yeah, and connect with each other, exchange your information, connect with each other. Can you just type in the comment box if you guys are like Mind Valley students, or you have the all access? Is that how you found out? How you actually, yeah, please do me a favor before you leave, just type in the box, how do you found out about the webinar? I would appreciate this. Okay, so most of you through all access. Okay, that's great. So I'm gonna keep on posting things there so we can stay easily connected. But now you have all my information. I just, there's Camille found the event on Eventbrite, which is great too. But again, it's a different audience and so on. Folks on Mind Valley, they're already familiar with the things I speak about. Again, here's the thing. What I realized a long time ago: the more the information we want to acquire is coming from one place. It's from the most fundamental of all psychological needs, that is called certainty. Because the more information or more confirmation of the same information we hear from different sources, the more we start to feel that, no, this information is valid. Okay, great. But what do you do with it, right? Again, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. It's all about taking action. There's so much I shared with you, and there's all these resources. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and being this amazing audience and staying through the end for 3.5 hours. It's been amazing, but I need to take a half-hour break because I have also a team of rooftop workers here banging on my head. Maybe you guys don't hear it, but they've been changing all the pipes and stuff for rain runoff water, which is kind of annoying and filled up my patio with crap. But anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Ciao.